Dan Simmons' version of like a Stephen King young adult 80s
Oh,
horror
it's Dan
type scenario.
Simmons. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was
I love Dan Simmons.
Yeah. Well, I just went ahead and started going live because we were in the middle of a heated argument about betrayals and buddy reads. As you know, if you've followed this channel for any length of time, you know that Alan and I have argued back and forth about this betrayal thing. So hello, everybody. Welcome to Why Read episode 38. And I'm so excited to bring together two good friends of mine, David from Four Corners of the Page, who I just recently became friends with this year. We became friends a couple of months ago in Philip Chase's comment section of all places. We just suddenly hit it off and started talking. And yeah, it's just been amazing getting to know David ever since. And David is going to be moving from Kuwait to Tokyo pretty soon. And so I wanted to jump on getting him on Why Read as soon as possible because of that, because the time zones are just so much more in my favor right now with David in Kuwait than they will be when David moves to Tokyo. But also I wanted to pair, I always put a lot of thought into who I pair people together with on Why Read. And Alan is, Alan is just the easiest guest in the world to have here on my channel. I love talking with Alan and hearing about how many grievances he has against me for all the betrayals. But also, I noticed when I was thinking about it that when I was trying to think about who to pair David with, that David and Alan actually have several interesting things in common, which we'll get into here in a minute. But I'm going to go ahead before we begin. We always begin with the Why Read question. And I just want to say really quickly that to thank everybody here that's in the chat. Hello, Anita. Hello, Brian. And hello here. Good morning. So glad to see you all here today. Hooray. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start here. Love seeing that people are in different time zones. I'm in the afternoon here. So we're going to go ahead and start with the Why Read question. And of course, I always frame this as in a time when so many distractions are competing for our attention, what inspires you to pick up a book? And so David, welcome to Why Read. Why Read?
Thank you. I think the thing Alan and I have in common is a strong jawline, right? Which is the most important thing. I've thought about this question for a while because I knew it was coming. I really couldn't land on anything very succinct. And people say a lot of stuff about why reading is important. You talk about like it boosts critical thinking skills, which is really important to me as a teacher. It allows you to kind of go on adventures inside your head. It allows you to adopt different perspectives and all these really crucial, wonderful things. But I kept telling myself, like, if I took each of those strands away, would I still read? Like, if I read a book and I never developed critically as a person ever again, would I still read? The answer is yes. If I read and never really adopted the persona or the mindset of someone else, that would be devastating, but I'd still read. And so I think, thinking about this, my only answer is because it's fun. It brings me joy. And I think that can often get lost in the wash. There's so many fabulous reasons to read, but at the end of the day, if it wasn't fun, I don't think I'd do it. And I feel really fortunate and to be a member of this community, and also just in general that we all have this shared just joy when we sit down and read a book, unless it's Empire of Silence. I think that's my main reason. At the end of the day, it's just that it's just fun. It's something that I enjoy, and I feel very lucky to have that.
That's fantastic. And there's no wrong answer when it comes to why read. And I know that Alan is always accusing me of betraying him for other friends who are more intelligent than he was just saying that I betray him for friends that are more intelligent than he is, which is not true. He's very intelligent. And Alan, I know you're probably tired of this question because you've been on Why Read before, but do you have an answer to this question today?
I mean, okay, so like if I'm reading fiction, I read nonfiction to learn stuff. Like I've been reading a lot of ancient history nonfiction currently. But I like David's answer because I think there is pressure, whether intrinsic or extrinsic, pressure to say a reason other than what David said, because it's freaking fun, because I want to, because I like it. And I think there are those, and Joanna, you probably know more of those people than I do, that don't think that's a good reason, that reading has to be this kind of like Because there are people, and you know what, people can do what they want. Like there are people who read for the purpose of being challenged, for the purpose of digging in and advancing some kind of whatever. I don't particularly enjoy working a lot when I am reading. Like I like to enjoy what I'm reading for the enjoyment of it, as opposed to always. This isn't to say I don't like things that aren't thematically complex. I do, whether or not you believe it, for me not liking The Dispossessed. But I think, like, for example, I just finished Trader's Blade, rereading Trader's Blade, the first book of the Greatcoats. There are many problems with the first book of the Greatcoats. I don't care. I don't care, because I like the spirit of what it's trying to say, that there should be justice, that there should be right and wrong, that honor and justice are not the same thing. And I'm a big fan of, like, grand speeches and swinging from the chandelier action and, oh, we're trapped. Oh no, at the last minute, something comes and saves us. Like, I don't care, because it was fun, because it's a fun romp that makes me feel things. It makes me feel anxious in the best way, or are they going to get out of it? Or like if I'm going, like the author has done something right, whether or not there are a lot of, I don't know, like more academic benefits from a book like that, is what I mean. So I think reading for fun is absolutely correct. Like I would not read if it was not fun, because I have a whole bunch of other things that I really like to do, and reading takes a long time. So kudos to David. That's a good answer.
I'm very intelligent.
Yeah, I know.
I think the Dresden Files is very similar. Like, I know people might disagree with me on this, but Dresden Files, right? Like, I think you could maybe argue the initial few books are quite shallow. Hello. I'm not going to say anything as interesting as what's happening on your screen.
All right, he'll leave momentarily.
No, by all means.
It's Joanna. You've seen Joanna.
Hello.
He's about to go.
Have you read the Dresden Files?
He has not. Oh, you think that's funny? You like the Dresden Files? All right, bud. Okay.
Oh, so cute.
Bye.
All right, continue.
And hi to Christina back there too.
Hey, buddy. All right.
I'll finish that point very quickly. I think the Dresden Files, some people argue that it's more literary than it seems, but for me, it was just fun. I read those first couple of books, and I read book 1 on a plane. I read book 2 on the plane back, visiting my in-laws in the States. And I read those 2 books, and I thought, you know what, I'm getting to the end of this, and I'm getting to the end of it in about 6 months. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that was one of my most joyous experiences of the last 3-4 years. So yeah, absolutely. I think we're in accordance here. Although maybe another thing to say there very quickly would be that reading as a challenge is also a kind of fun. Like you could argue something like Ulysses or Finnegan's Wake. It's kind of the literary equivalent of climbing a mountain, and there's something quite nice to get to the top of a mountain.
Friends don't let friends read James Joyce, David.
Shakespeare.
Okay, Shakespeare's fine. Okay,
Shakespeare. You finish Hamlet, and you're standing at the top of a mountain, and you're tired, but you're glad you've done it. Might be a good analogy. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting because I know David and I just had a wonderful discussion. Actually, the last video on my channel was about book difficulty, which was a wonderful discussion that David and I had together. And it was the best time because David and I, we had just become friends and decided to have this discussion together. And we were thinking, well, I don't know if anybody will watch this, but you know what? We don't care because we're having the best time. And it was a wonderful discussion. But we talked in that discussion about Robin Hobb. And when you talk, Alan, about the idea of reading being fun and not being so much effort, something about Hobb's writing for me, and we talked about this a bit in that discussion, that's why I bring it up, is that I don't feel like it's any effort to read her prose. Like when I'm reading her books, I'm just having fun, and it feels easy. If my brain feels like it can relax around the words, and yet I feel like she's doing so many interesting things thematically. So it's neat that you can have both too. And I do remember those early Traders Not reviews that you did on your channel, Alan, and how pumped up you would get about those speeches and how excited you were.
Yeah, I just started rereading Shadow and Summer for a read along with John and Josh. And I was looking at 1-star reviews of Shadow and Summer, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Because this reading Shadow and Summer and the Long Press Quartet again, for me, is very fun because it is what I enjoy out of books, but I completely understand how some people are bored to tears, especially after that first book. Like, it is just, I still say it's a series that you just have to read as kind of one thing. And so, yeah, I do get that. Because we do take our fun in, some people don't think crossword puzzles are fun, and I do crossword puzzles like it's my job. So I get it. I do get it. I think I'm more talking about, I don't know, maybe there are just some people who only enjoy really difficult texts, and that's just fun for them. But I don't know. I make, as David knows, as a teacher, we make thousands of micro decisions every single day. Sometimes when I get home, I don't want to do more of that. Like, I want to read something that I can just ride the emotional high of, instead of having to, ponder every little thing. Long Price Quartet is not like that. That's much more of a cerebral read than is Trader's Blade. But yeah. So I agree. There is fun in doing something challenging for sure.
I'm so envious of your small child being able to sit in one place for a long period of time.
This is a good child. We are concerned the second one will not be so, as far as like docile. Like, this is a docile child.
I tell you what, not to derail the conversation, but my first one is a poet, and will sit in one place and do his stuff. I love this mug because this is exactly what my daughter looks like. Yeah, I mean, Joanna, you've seen it. She'll just run for the hills. But the second one is generally regarded as the sprinter, shall we say?
Everyone says that. Everyone says that, and I'm dreading it.
Yeah.
There you go.
But I didn't mean to derail us. I think there's maybe a thing there as well where we often confuse complexity with difficulty. Do you know what I mean? I would say that Kurt Vonnegut novels, for example, are extremely complex, and you could spend ages writing big, long essays on them. Not that you should, but you could. But Kurt Vonnegut's style is famously just simple. And you have other authors who I won't name because I already threw a grenade in the first 2 minutes with Empire of Silence, who can write massively complex sentences, and they're actually quite trite and facile if you try and unstitch them.
I know, man.
David's got
fired.
He's got carbine firing shots across the bow.
Yeah, I saw the chat explode when I talked about Empire of Silence, so I thought I'd just remind everyone.
I think John Williams. I think Stoner and Augustus are incredibly thematic and complex, but is written in such a simple and beautiful writing style, and that's why John Williams is one of my favorites because of that, I think.
Yeah, Stoner. You said.
Have you read Stoner, David? I can't remember if you said it. Yeah. Oh, this is how I know we're best friends. Okay.
I had such a joyous experience with Stoner, and that final page, really
I couldn't stop talking about that book for like 2 years. I adored Stoner so much. Sorry, didn't mean to derail the conversation, but I did want to talk about, because Alan, you brought up LPQ, Long Price Quartet. And I've actually been talking with David that I wonder if David would like Long Price Quartet. He did a video. Everybody should check out David's channel, by the way. Subscribe to both channels if you're not. Of course, you probably are already subscribed to Alan if you're here. But make sure that you watch David's video on magic, because in his video on magic, he was talking about rather than just say, this has hard magic, this has soft magic, then maybe that's like one element of magic, but maybe also try to understand, what is the magic trying to do in the story? Like, maybe try to dig a little further. And when you talked about that, my first thought went to Long Price Quartet, because I feel like the magic really sticks with me as far as like what it's trying to do in that story. So Alan, would you tell David why you love, or tell all of us why you love Long Price Quartet, and maybe talk about the magic part too?
I love Long Price Quartet because it is a character study of two men over the course of like 50 years of their life. And it is one of the best portrayals and realistic portrayals of a friendship and the things that come in between that ever. And it's just, some of it is Shakespearean in its tragedy. It's just so good. The magic system, though, are ideas captured, called the Ondat, for example. And if they escape, the Ondat the form they take is based on who is the one that summons them. So it has all of the weaknesses and vanities of the summoner. So it takes a certain kind of person, level-headed and even tempered, to summon them. And if they escape, they basically, they kill their owner and they escape. And to be rebound, it has to be like thought in a different way. For example, water moving down is one of them. And when she was first captured, her name was Rain, because that's water moving down. And then it was Seaward, because that's water moving downstream or whatever. But she's been captured so many times that unless you can find a new way to chain her and make this abstract concrete, you can't. And if you fail, like one guy tried to summon her and failed, and he immediately swelled, his belly swelled, and he died, and they cut him open, and like black seawater and seaweed came out of him. But they're like these mini gods. Like water moving down can be used to water your crops, it can be used to flood a city, it can be used for all these things. And so the main one in the first book is called Removing the Part That Continues, aka Seedless, and he is used in the cotton trade to immediately remove all of the seeds in the cotton, because there is no cotton gin. So and that city that has that Ondat, that god, dominates the economy, because they can harvest cotton faster than anybody else can. But that's not its only ability, because it's removing the part that continues. That's what its actual name is, and it can do other things that are much more dangerous. And there's a mining town that uses stone made soft, because hey, guess what? You can mine through a mountain really easy when they can turn the stone soft. So it's these abstract concepts that are given humanoid form, and it's just fascinating the way they do it. And it's just like, it's Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park. They're too busy figuring out whether they don't stop to think about whether or not they should. And because they're basically nuclear weapons. Like anybody who has an Ondat has such a technological advantage over anyone else, that it's really the only geopolitical deterrent that they have. And so it asks things like, is that fair? Like, what will people do to counteract that advantage? And what will people do to stop an all-out world destroying conflict or whatever? Anyway, and that's what's happening in the backdrop of this story. It's really just about friendship and how the decisions you make when you're young can still echo when you're an old man. And I feel that. I wish I had not made mistakes when I was young, so that as an old man, I guess I'm in book 3 right now in my life. But yeah, it's good. It's really good. People will tell you it's not. They're not right. It's good. It's good, especially if you read the whole thing.
It's quite short, isn't it? Each novel within the quartet.
Yes. The entirety of the quartet is shorter than one of the middle Stormlight books. The entire thing.
Okay, but so like 200, 300,000 words still.
Yeah, they're 320 pages a piece. So yeah, less than 1,500 pages for the whole thing, which is.
But I love that idea, of magic initially coming as a mirror of the self. If I understood that rightly, right? Yeah. I think it's really fast. I know Earthsea does something similar as well in that first book, and I'm hearing lots of positive things about Le Guin right now, so I won't touch that one too much. But yeah, I think that's really fascinating, that what the magic you bring into the world is what your personality is based upon. And so there's a question there, I guess, of who is willing to hold up that mirror to the world in the first place. I'm not sure I am.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in the first book, the poet that summoned Seedless has such incredible self-loathing that Seedless despises his master. Like, he hates him because he's a manifestation of the guy's personal self-loathing. And it's just really interesting to see how the interaction is, because they're not people, but at the same time, they're being kept as people, as slaves, except that they're not real. It's like a concept being enslaved. So it's just interesting.
It's just so fascinating about it. I love that it ties in the psychological with the magic, and at the same time, like what you were saying, it has those geopolitical ramifications in the backdrop, and at the same time, the story just zooms in on this friendship between two boys. I love the way Alan just explained all of that, because I think it's done in such a skillful way, the way the stories are. And they are 4 stories. They are fairly short. There are time jumps between each stories, but it gives you that long view of friendship, that long view of time. It's
Yeah,
so
there's
well
about
done.
15 years between each book.
Yeah.
And
Do they-
Abraham does time jump better than many authors that I've read, in where he just drips information, like does not go into detail about what happened in that time, and yet you still feel like you knew kind of what these people have been through in the intervening years.
It's such a challenge for a writer to do, I think. I mean, we were talking about a series before we came live that I don't want to mention because it might be vaguely spoilery, but I think everyone who's read it will know what I'm talking about. That there's quite a famous book out that has some significant time jumps as the novel progresses. And this was one of the reasons that I didn't like this novel so much, because the time jumps, it felt like I was kind of falling out of love with the characters in real time, because as the time jumps were occurring, it no longer felt like the same character. But it sounds as though Long Price Quartet doesn't, I mean, it's such a difficult needle to thread, isn't it? But it sounds as though Long Price Quartet doesn't do that.
No, it's excellent. They are older and more mature but I mean, again, we all mature in different ways. You absolutely see this is the same character, but has built on the experience of the previous book into who they are now. Abraham really does a tremendous job, I think, personally, with threading that needle, because it absolutely is hard. You're absolutely correct, because sometimes when you have those time jumps, it's like, well, I don't like this guy anymore. Like, this character's like, this isn't the character that I liked, prior to aging up. But I think Abraham is very skillful in the way he does it.
I agree. I think he's very skillful in the way he does the time jumps. And David, do you mind just sharing which series you're talking about?
Is it okay? Greenbone Saga. I think Jade Legacy. I'm going to fire my second round of volleys into the chat. I really like Greenbone, but I much prefer books 1 and 2. My sister and I, we buddy read it together, and we both were so excited for book 3 because everyone talks about book 3 being this magnificent masterpiece, the encapsulation of everything that came before. And we both were kind of reading it together, messaging each other, and going, these characters aren't really the same, are they? I felt like with I don't know if this is a huge hot take, but I really felt like with Jade Legacy, I had finished with the story before the characters had finished with the story, because as far as I was concerned, the characters I had grown to love had disappeared as they became 20, 30, 40 years older.
Yeah. I've only read Jade City, and my hot take is I did not care for Jade City. I wanted to so badly. Alan and I actually buddy read that together, and he was a little bit more. What?
For anyone who doesn't know, this was a long time ago, just so you don't get confused that Joanna and I buddy read anything these days. We don't. It was like 4 years ago.
And the thing is, Godfather is one of my favorite movies of all time. I just started rewatching it. I'm going to be rewatching that with my husband soon. Love The Godfather, both 1 and 2. Not so much 3. We don't talk about that one. But I had high expectations for Greenbone Saga, and unfortunately, it just didn't quite hit the mark for me personally. But I know others disagree. So like Pete here, he loved the time jumps in Legacy. I've heard your opinion voiced as well, though, David. So I guess it's very hit or miss for people.
But I think Barry mentioned in the chat that Robin Hobb does these time skips beautifully. I think we kind of mentioned Hobb previously, didn't we? But those 20-year jumps, or however long they are between series, I mean, I think they're done. The characters have grown, but they're still the same person.
Okay.
I have not read Hobb yet, so I look forward to seeing that at some point.
I hope you enjoy Hobb. I can't tell if you will or not, but I hope you enjoy Hobb.
No one knows.
But yeah, Brian says, agreed on Jade Legacy. My least favorite of the series because of the time skips. And then Anita here says, I liked Greenbone, but I hated time jumps in Jade Legacy. So everybody's kind of like all over the place with this. Really interesting. And let's see. In my headcanon, she took a trilogy and stuffed it into the last book.
It's very peculiar. Yeah. It's kind of like every 50 or 75 pages, Fonda Lee moves the plot on by like 5 or 10 years. So you don't really feel comfortable kind of getting back in with these characters, because you know that in a couple of chapters time, you're going to move on another 5-10 years.
Yeah. See, that is an odd choice to me. Like here are the two ways that I've seen time skips done okay, where the beginning section, like part 1 of the novel, is like when the characters there's some defining event when they're younger, and so we go through that, and then there's this big life-changing event, and then it skips ahead, and the rest, the other 3/4 of the novel are about time skipped ahead. That's fine. And then Long Price Quartet you get snapshot of a year or two in these people's lives, and then the book ends, and then it's 15 years later, so it's in a separate book.
Yes.
I don't think I've seen multiple, like multi-year time jumps in a single novel before, which, and maybe I have and just aren't remembering, but that seems like that would be jarring to me. I haven't read it, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
Same. I'm not sure though. Yeah.
It's still a good book, but it's nothing like the first two, which I think are much better. And if you didn't like, what's the first one called? Jade City, then I would suggest not continuing. Yeah.
I did not
I
care.
probably liked it better than Joanna.
Yeah, he did. He liked it better than I did. Yeah, it's true. And Alan forgets that we buddy read a book this year
called The
Glorious
Dispossessed.
Exploits.
Oh my gosh. Again, I was forced into this buddy read. No one said, hey, Alan. No one said, what would you like to buddy read? Instead, they said, hey, we're going to read this really pretentious book about playwriting that's set in, you know, the Peloponnesian War times. So that'll get you in. It was, I don't know. It had big ideas. It was about something.
You're an ancient history guy, aren't you?
Do what?
You're an ancient history guy, aren't you?
I mean, sure, but that doesn't, but I mean, I don't, so like there are plenty of books about ancient history that I read that, like, I DNF'd Gates of Fire about the Battle of Thermopylae because
that was a boring book.
It was. Thank you, Joanna. It's such a snooze fest. So that does, I mean, it's just a cool backdrop. And so I like the historical stuff, but then, you know, I mean, talking to John and Joanna about it, I like it better. That's why I like YouTube and the discussion aspect, because then I'm like, you know what, I can see that. That's fine. I just didn't enjoy the experience of reading it.
Well, the only people I heard about it from were the Brothers Gwyn. I know the Brothers Gwyn loves that book, and
they're killing.
And they love Warlord. So yeah, I guess it's kind of hit or miss, right?
Yeah. They also they loved Gates of Fire, and they loved the Boudica series. And I read the first book, and I'm like, I can't do this. It's not good. So
I want them to read Augustus by John Williams, but I don't know if they ever will.
Augustus is good. So David, if you've read Stoner, you should read Augustus.
You should.
I wanted to ask
about Butcher's Crossing. You might really enjoy too.
Butcher's Crossing is a Western, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to ask, actually, because I think you guys have read far more historical fiction than me. I think I've read Lonesome Dove, if you could kind of call that historical fiction, and that's really it.
You should read Shogun. You'll like Shogun, I think.
Shogun is good. Why are you in
Japan? So I taught in Japan for about 6 years, and I keep leaving it and coming back. So this is going to be my third time coming back.
David, I need to ask you because I continue to talk to my wife. Yeah. Should we move to Japan and get out?
Yes, do it. How would someone in the time zone as me?
Serious, like I think about it all. I think about it all the time. I'm like, but what if, Christina, we could walk around any street at night?
Yep.
And not worry about anything. Because when I studied over there, that was the most remarkable thing. We're walking around 11 o'clock at night, like, and it's just like you're fine. Like you're fine. We were over in Fukuoka, but I loved it. But all my family's here. But I need to take whatever you say, and I'd be like, Christina, we need to move to Japan and get out of here because everything's too expensive here.
So I had the inverse thing that happened to me where I was in the States because my wife's American, and I finished actually, oh my goodness, blanking on the name of it, the second three-body problem book, Dark Forest, and it blew my mind, and I just had to go for a walk. So I just left the house at like midnight, and I just walked around for an hour, and I got home, and my wife was like, where were you? And I was like, oh, I just finished a book and went for a walk. She's like, don't do that. She was like, you don't go walking for an hour in the States at midnight, depending on where you were. Yeah, but Japan it's fabulous, and we keep leaving and going. That's the end of it, and then we keep applying to come back. So this will be the indefinite move. You know, my son keeps asking me, how many days will we be in Japan? Because we moved to Kuwait for 2 years, so 2 through 4. So he's very conscious of this big move, but he also kind of remembers coming here. So he's kind of asking, are we like how many days in Japan? And we're kind of saying to him, listen, all being well, I think we're just going to stay there because it's in some ways it's a super wonky country. Like the paperwork is granular. But
are you teaching English out there?
Teaching English, yeah. So I went there in 2015, did the JET program, like ESL stuff.
Yeah.
And then I came back the second time, and I kind of got my master's degree in teaching. And taught kind of a mix of ESL and AFL. But to be a teacher in Scotland, you need something called a PGDE. And we realized once my son was born, right, that we were going to be running out of time if I wanted to secure this actual teaching certification paper. And so we left Japan in 2022 to get that, the PGDE. And then following that, we've come to Kuwait for 2 years. But as soon as we left Japan, it started to kind of bubble up and boil in both of us. Like, should we go back? We're also very conscious, right, that when you're kind of nostalgic for something, talking about time jumps, you can go the other way too, right? Were we missing Japan, or were we missing our 20s? Because those are two very different questions, right? Am I missing the culture and being in somewhere like Tokyo, or am I missing being 22 and kind of just walking with my friends to karaoke at 11 o'clock at night? And once we kind of realized it was the latter, or the former and the latter together, but the former as well, we thought, yeah, okay, let's apply. So I got this teaching position that I'm really pleased with, and it's in West Tokyo, where we kind of have always been living. And so we're just happy to kind of resume life there and get back into it, because it really is a wonderful country. The yen is crashing out. we don't expect to make any money whatsoever. Yeah. But if you're considering a move, especially a teaching move, there's stuff out there. There really is.
Yeah, I don't have any other skills. Like, it's all I could do is teach. And my wife would have to do the same thing. But I mean, I know the cost of living is less. I know you make significantly less, but the cost of living is also less. But I hate it here because everything's too expensive. Like, it's too expensive. It's too expensive. My flood insurance, they recategorized my neighborhood, and now I'm in a flood zone. I wasn't when I bought the house 2 years ago. Now I am. So my flood insurance went up from $400 when I bought the house to now they're trying to make me pay $4,000 for flood insurance. I'm sorry. Did I get a $4,000 raise as a teacher? That's hilarious. No. So I had to shop
very
around.
similar in the UK. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Where were you? By the way, I just want to say really quickly, I'm excited to see some people in the chat that I haven't seen before. So hello, ADHD reader. And I saw Andy Smith earlier. I highlighted his comment. I was super excited to see him here.
I studied in Fukuoka, David. I was over there for 6 weeks in 2008, and I loved it. Like, I just loved it. Though, just like in America and just like in Rome, the Japanese, they didn't want to talk to me about Japanese history either. No one ever wants to talk to me about history. I was like, hey, or I was even trying to talk to them about politics. I'm like, hey, Koizumi, like, he's your prime minister. No one cares. No one cares about Koizumi.
History. I'll do it.
Nice. Well, then we can talk about the Sengoku Jidai, and it's just a freaking cool period of history. And, you know, I was like, hey, Tokugawa. And everyone's like, what? I don't care. And it's like, all right, well, I guess I'll just won't talk to anybody about Tokugawa or Ishida or any of that. I'll just eat it.
It's such a lovely region, though, Fukuoka. You got Nagasaki in spitting distance. You got Beppu in spitting distance. That the whole kind of cluster of cities to the west of Japan that people don't visit.
I love Kyushu. I love Kyushu.
Yeah. You should move there.
And something else I was bringing up before we went live is that I made a mistake because I thought Alan read Dead House Gates in Tokyo, but it turned out he did read it in Japan. Mm-hmm. And David read Dead House Gates in Japan, and I thought it'd be fun to hear your two stories with that. I don't know if we could do that without spoilers. Is there a way to do that without spoilers?
Yeah, I don't have to. I'm not going to talk about Dead House Gates. I'm just talking about the experience of reading it.
Okay, talk about the experience of reading it. Can you do that, David, first, and then?
Yeah, sure, I can go first.
Either way.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so for me, I was rereading Malaz, and this was 2020. So I was doing it via audiobook mostly, but I was kind of dipping in and out of the text itself. And my son was born in 2020. But obviously, for me, that's the most significant part of my life in 2020. But for the rest of the world, it was COVID. And so my wife had the absolute joy of giving birth in the COVID era, which was tremendously difficult for a number of reasons. Not least of which was we couldn't fly anywhere. No one could come and see us when our son was born. We were very much kind of, Japan didn't open up until like 18 months after everyone else. Like, it only very recently came back. And even now everyone's still wearing masks. Masks have still not kind of really gone down in Japan, is my understanding. Like, that mask culture is still there. No one wants to be the first one to take it off, I guess. But anyway, so what happened was my wife Wednesday morning went to the hospital for a checkup, being very close to going into labor. And they said, no, we're going to keep you because we think your blood pressure is quite high or something like that. So we're going to just keep you in the hospital. We're going to induce you. So on Wednesday, I got this phone call saying, you need to go home, get all the bags, bring them to the hospital. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I can see why that would be my duty. So I went there, got the bags, brought them to the hospital. And then they said to me, now you have to leave. And I said, why? Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to go back to work right now. They said, no, COVID protocols are that you cannot be in the hospital right up until basically the moment of birth. Now, this hospital was about, it was in the heart of Shibuya, Red Cross Hospital, I think it was called. And we lived in West Tokyo, so it was about a 45-minute train ride away. And I did not want to roll that dice, do you know what I mean, of getting the phone call saying baby's coming and then going to the train. It just wasn't going to work. So I booked a hotel room just off from where the hotel was. And I packed a bag for myself and I called my work. I said, listen, I'll do whatever I can, but I'm going to be parked here for the foreseeable. So my wife was admitted to hospital on Wednesday morning and she gave birth, I think, Friday afternoon. So I was just kind of, this is such a classic man thing to do, isn't it? Explain the birth from the man's perspective and talk about the tremendous suffering I went through. I'm just realizing. But basically what happened was I was stuck in this hotel room for 2 days. And I was, fizzing with anxiety and fizzing with fear and obviously being concerned for my wife and, just constantly checking in. Also constantly worried that I was going to sleep through it because, I'd get the phone call saying, it's time, but that could be literally at any point. So eventually, I did two things in this hotel room. First of all, I watched Knives Out. And then I just read Dead House Gates. And you'll know if you've read Dead House Gates that thematically it's got nothing to do with children being born. If anything, thematically, it's the opposite. But I also had this battered copy of Dead House Gates. So I spent about 2 days in this hotel room, just nonstop reading it, right up until I got the phone call. And I got through and I was there for my son's birth, thankfully. Of course, the other side of that was that they then asked me to leave right away again, because once the son has been born, they then said, okay, we now need you to take your leave and you can come back in 6 days to collect your child and your wife. So I'm very glad that I was there for the birth of my son. I got that hour. Because aside from that, it was me just in a hotel room reading Dead House Gates. So I'm grateful to that book. Again, even though thematically it's very different from what was actually going on in my life at the time.
Dang.
Yeah.
That is such a powerful story, though. Oh my gosh. I would be freaking out, especially like you said, did you just stay up the whole time? Was that what helped you stay awake or stay alert? Because it's like you have to be kind of on call to move at any point.
So the hotel staff knew me at that point because I kept coming downstairs saying, I'm prolonging for another 12 hours, I'm prolonging for another, et cetera, et cetera. And I just said to them, listen, here is my wife's phone number. They might call. If I don't, she's going to call me first, but if I don't pick up, please bang on my door, was the only solution I could come up with. Because, I said to my wife, would you be mad if I missed it? And she's like, a little bit, yeah. So I made sure that everything was done to make sure I was there. And I'm really happy I was there. So that's my Dead House Gates Japan story. But that's part 1 of 2, isn't it, Alan?
I mean, mine is not that interesting. I happened to be, it was in 2008, and I had only read Gardens of the Moon, before I went to Japan. And so I brought Dead House Gates with me. And discovering these books, I was hanging out with, I don't know where I was. I don't know, whatever. I just happened to find these books in the bookstore. And I read the first one, and I brought Dead House Gates with me. And what no one tells you when you travel abroad is that, hey, guess what? There's different pathogens in the air than where you're from. So I was sick as a dog, for a week and a half. We were there for a week, and then for a week and a half, I was just laid out. Because just sick. And so I couldn't go on, they made me stay home from school and stuff like that. And so I would read Dead House Gates. And then even after I got better, Dead House Gates was, I was reading it the entire time I was in Japan, because my routine is out for the day, out school, whatever, we're gallivanting about, sitting in the smoking room, just drowning that dorm room with cigarette smoke, and then retire to our bedroom. And our dorm rooms had these showers that, I don't know if they have them elsewhere, but there's these showers that are they're both a bath and a shower, but they're square. It's not like a tub, it's a square, and it has a door. There's a door in the tub that you open and step in and close it, and then it makes it watertight. And so there's a seat in the tub. So I would turn the shower on, I would fill it up with hot water, I would sit on the seat, and I would read Dead House Gates in the bath every night. And so every time I think about Dead House Gates, I think about reading it in my Japanese dorm room, getting to study in Japan. And I've read Dead House Gates 3 times since then. But every time I read it, I'm like, man, I wish I was sitting in a Japanese bath right now, reading Dead House Gates. So
Is that where you were when you threw the book across the room?
Yeah, I was in my dorm room. I was in my dorm room where we get to the end of near the end of the book. And I just all right, well, this is garbage. I'm glad I followed this plot line for this whole book. And what do you mean this is how it ends? Get out of here. I was mad. I was mad. Screw you, Malik Rel. That's what I said.
The other thing about Japanese bathtubs that astounded me is that you can reheat them. You press a button and the water gets hot again.
Amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
Just there for that, to be honest.
Look, I took every opportunity that was given to me to go to an onsen. I went to every onsen I could. And let me tell you, as an American with our puritanical sensibilities, it is difficult the first time to force yourself to get in an onsen because everyone's naked as the day is that, the day they were born. And, and you just have to like wipe it from your memory. And once you do it once, it's fine. It's like, whatever. No one's ogling anybody. You just go dash, get in the water. You're fine. But man, I love the onsen. Love it.
The worst thing about the onsen is that they do give you a towel, but it's exclusively for your face. So the first time you go in, you feel really self-conscious and awkward because you're naked in front of everybody, and you do have a towel, and your impulse is to try and cover yourself up. But obviously, the towel is for the face. But my first week in Japan, meeting all my new colleagues for the first time, 21-year-old David didn't have a clue what was going on. All these coworkers came up to me and they said, "David, we want to take you out to celebrate you coming to Japan and making this big international leap." And I said, "Yeah, of course." Dinner? And they're like, "No, onsen." And yeah, do you want to get naked with all your new coworkers having just met them? But tell you what, my biggest regret is that I said no. I was too awkward. I was too shy, and I went.
I get it.
Yeah, but in retrospect, I think I should have. I think it would have been good fun. It would have broken the ice.
I wouldn't have been able to either. I was only able to go because I went by myself, and then even there were 5 of us that went. 2 of us were the older students, and then 3 of the beginner students, and he and I. We had no problem. We were going to onsen the crap out of this country. But the other 3, they couldn't do it. Like they could not bring themselves to do it. And we were just like, we did not come to Japan not to get in the onsen. There was an onsen in the middle of a public park. Like it's a public park and there's this pool of heated water with buckets next to it. There's guys picking weeds right next to it. There's a bridge over there that people are just walking across. And we looked at each other. We're like, dare we? Like, this is the culmination of our onsen journey. Should we get in this onsen in this public park? It was an anime frame. There was a single frame of us like deciding the clothes are off. We're in the thing, buckets covering the necessary part. Instant. One frame max. That's how fast we did. Cartoon smoke cloud. Because again, we're still American we're not slowly and languidly removing our clothing. But that was good times. Just to say that I got in an onsen in the middle of a public park.
See, this is why I love reading, because I would just much rather read about people doing this in Long Price Quartet. I can live vicariously through the characters going to bathhouses in Long Price Quartet. I think this is an experience I don't think I need in my life, but
see, when you've done it the first time, after that first time, it's fantastic. It's just that first time you need to get over that initial. It's the same thing with karaoke, which is the other Japanese sort of awkward, embarrassing staple. The first time you do karaoke, you're sitting there with a microphone, and then see, once you've done it one time, suddenly like I'm singing Mr. Brightside at 2 a.m., having like an ice cream in one hand, the microphone in the other. Everyone else has gone home. It's just me, the karaoke guys trying to pack everything up, and I'm just sitting there singing Mr. Brightside.
My go-to was Crocodile Rock by Elton John, and the GK group. We had a dinner with the executives from the Japanese guys that brought us over, basically in charge of the group that brought us over. And me and a guy that went with me, Big Mac, all we did was sing Crocodile Rock. And so these people had heard about it. And so our liaison made us sing a cappella Crocodile Rock for these drunk Japanese businessmen who are red in the face, and we're having to do the Crocodile Rock in with something shocking. It was so fun. It was karaoke so fun.
It's so good. We had one where we were at, me and my mates went to a pub. It was in Chiba somewhere. We were on like a weekend away, and we're feeling very awkward, like 3 kind of like awkward kind of gangly guys sitting there. And then one amazing middle-aged bloke, there was a karaoke kind of thing in the corner, so it wasn't one of the booths. He does put some money in it. The money does it automatically. But he goes up to it, he selects a song, and he takes the microphone, he passes it to my friend Dom, and he just says, "And now you will sing, 'We Are the World.'" And to be fair to Dom, he did it. There's something about some of these things that are so awkward at the beginning that really do unlock really joyous memories. And I think that's one of the reasons I kind of feel really indebted to Japan, for a country that's so closed and reserved. I think it really did help me kind of break out my shell a little bit.
My
So, yeah,
wife is
So
going to be
cool.
so mad at you that she's not here listening to this, because when she comes back and I'm off this stream, I'm going to be like, Christina, we're moving to Japan. Just pack up, start looking for a job. And she's going to be like, where did this come from? I'll be like, well, I was talking to David. So now we're moving to Japan. Sorry. Hate it.
what are the reasons you want to move back? Why is it pulling at you?
So I love, first of all, I don't want to say I'm a weeb, but I like Japanese. Okay. As a teacher, and I understand that Japanese schools are different, I admire the fact that students in Japan are forced to take some ownership in their school and in their freaking education. Like, they are expected to pick up after them dang selves and to actually, I don't know, engage in the culture of the school rather than it being someone's job. And so they literally take a crap in the urinals, because I tell the kids that, I'm like, if we were in Japan, I promise you, if you sat there and you thought it was funny to take a crap in the urinal, your peers would beat the tar out of you, because guess what? It's going to be one of y'all that has to clean it up. So, and I like that it is a relatively safe country.
Yeah.
I mean, not as far as earthquakes are concerned, but I enjoyed being able to not, there wasn't danger in walking. I also like the fact that there are expectations, and it is because it comes at the expense of individuality.
Yes.
I mean, Japanese, as you know, is a very homogenized society. But I think in America, and I'm not sitting here, y'all calm down before Alan hates America. No, I think there's a lot to recommend. And a lot of it is our individual, ability to do who we want. But I think that has come at a cost where there are no expectations for anyone in anything anymore. And I just read a book about institutions and their formative value, and that we don't believe that institutions should form people anymore, because then you're taking away their individual reality and liberty,
which is a very Western mindset.
Correct. And so I am much more on the side of like, what if we did something for the common good here, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if sometimes we got to make some sacrifices individually for the common good? And I realized taken to excess, we have the ijime, where they pick out some kid and they bully the crap out of them in primary school or whatever. And there is a lot of conformity. And I don't like the idea of having to move classrooms as a teacher, because, the kids stay in the classroom. I would not like that at all. But I also like that it is healthier. Like, as someone who's reached their 40s and is growing rapidly more aware of his own mortality, it's a healthier society, because I like walking. I like the fact that you walk everywhere. And if not, you've got the bullet trains and stuff. And I like the Japanese people when I was there. And again, I was there for 6 weeks, but I have studied Japan. I mean, my degree was in international politics with a major in East Asia. So I've studied Japan, China, and Korea. And my minor was in Japanese. And so I don't know. Like, I just want to, I just don't like it here is the problem.
I fell in love with Japan the short time that I went a few years ago, and it was a bit jarring to come back here, because just being in such, like, and I know every society has a darker side and everything, but there's just something about the consideration of people there, I think, is what you're kind of speaking to.
Yeah.
And like how quiet it is when you get on a subway or something compared to here. And then coming from Japan, from Tokyo, we went to Tokyo and Hiroshima, to coming back to the Atlanta airport and just people screaming and cussing in my ear. Like, the second I'm like in customs line here, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, it's just, it just shock. It's like a shock to my nervous. It was like a shock to my nervous system to come back here.
As an example, I go Busch Gardens in Tampa, Florida is my favorite place to go ever, because it is a combination of roller coasters and a zoo. And I love it. And I've been going there since I was very small. And the very first animal exhibit you get to is an alligator pen. And there's this iron wrought fence that comes about to your above your gut. And behind it, there's the alligators. And it's been that way my entire life. 2 years ago, some schmuck jumped that fence so that he could get a TikTok with him and the alligators. And the man was thrown away. It is one of my greatest regrets in life that this man was not killed, because But the thing is, if he had been killed, you know what? People would have sued Busch Gardens, which is absolutely ludicrous. And so now when I go, there is no longer the wrought iron fence. There is now the wrought iron fence followed by this huge black chain fence where you can barely see the alligators. And so for my entire life, I've had this open pen. And now because of one freaking idiot and his desire to be internet famous, I can't see the alligators anymore. That would never happen in Japan. That would never happen in Japan because people have respect for other things besides themselves.
I had a similar experience when my wife and I, we did our honeymoon in Canada and we drove through the Rockies, and there was a big buildup of traffic, right? Like 50, 60, 70 cars deep. And, you know, these are big, wide open roads, so there's no reason for lots of traffic. And what it was is that there was a bear cub on the side of the road, and everyone was getting out of their vehicles to take pictures with the small bear. And I kind of just went, you all have, I kind of went, let's just keep driving here. Because, yeah, I mean, I don't want to comment on North America. I really enjoy North America. But sometimes these people kind of want their own end to be hastened, I kind of feel like. Whereas, I don't say whereas with Japan, but going back to the point in Japan about it being a bit of a dark side, there's a really famous saying in Japan, an idiom, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down.
Yeah.
Which is the flip side, isn't it? That people who try and, you know, give this sense of individuality often find themselves feeling a lot of pressure. But yeah, there's so many like wonderful little moments in Japan. So I had one where the guy who lived next to my first apartment, whenever I would walk into my school, he would always be out on the sidewalk on the pavement. And I don't know if this was his job or he was taking it upon himself. He had a little trash picker, but there's no trash on the ground in Japan. What he was doing is he was picking up all the leaves that were on the sidewalk. Tiny little leaves like this big, not like big chunky leaves, like tiny little marble-sized leaves. And that was what he did every morning to kind of get his day started.
We passed someone picking up stuff every day on the way to school. And me and the other advanced kid, we smoked. They gave us a portable ashtray that's screwed and unscrewed to hang around our neck because that's where the cigarette butts go. You do not throw cigarette butts on the ground. And so we just finished our cigarette, put it in the thing. I don't smoke anymore. But I thought that was just so, I would have eaten off the floor of the subway station in Japan because it was so. Also, David, I forgot, I cannot believe I haven't said this yet. Shaka Shaka chicken is the greatest thing from McDonald's.
Oh, I know you're speaking my language.
Dude, it's so good. I would buy, because I can't eat Japanese food. I tried so hard. So I had rice.
What is this? Explain what this is.
It is a chicken breast, like of Chick-fil-A quality. Like it's a real chicken breast. Yeah. And it cost, when I was there, it cost 100 yen, which is $1. Yep. It cost $1 when I was there. And it comes hot in a package, and you get different powders. Like mine was black pepper, but you can get garlic powder, nacho cheese powder, and then you pour it in with the hot chicken breast. You fold it over, and it's named because of shaka 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 shaka. It's an onomatopoeia of shaking it, and so the powder coats the hot chicken breast, and it is divine. I would buy 8 of them for lunch, and that's what I'd eat all day. Just shove them in my backpack, and I would just hum. So good, and they don't have it here, and it sucks.
It's really good. I have one more Japan story, if you'll indulge me. I know that Alan and I have just gone on a complete.
Sorry, Joanna.
On a wide read. We've kind of gone away from.
Go on.
So we were in what's Hachijojima. It's this little island. It's about 10 hours boat ride south of Tokyo, and we decided to cycle around the island. So we hired these bicycles, and we got about 8 hours in, and it started to get dark, and we realized that we were in the absolute middle of nowhere. And so we very quickly realized that we were just stranded. And so we called the hotel and we kind of tried to explain our situation and said, listen, we're in the other end of this island. Hachijojima is where Battle Royale was filmed. It's that kind of region.
Nice.
And so we call up this hotel guy saying, is there a bus coming? Do you know? And he just said, just wait there. Just wait there. And so we sit there with our bikes. It's getting properly dark now. And we see these floodlights, not floodlights, but, car lights over the hill, over the rise. And as we come up over the hill, we see a school bus descend the other side and park in front of us. And the driver, basically the hotel had called a nearby bus driver who'd taken his school bus to drive to the other side of the island to pick up us and our bicycles and drive us back into town. And it was such a lovely kind of extra mile thing that really was, I think, and we speak about the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. I don't want to minimize that. I'm always quite conscious of speaking of Japan as a utopia when it does have its own kind of set of issues. But that kind of level of kindness and courtesy really did stick with me, that someone would drive their school bus to save some 20-something idiots who'd bitten off more than they could chew. Yeah.
And I know it's a grass is greener thing. It's just, anyway, sorry, Joanna, please. Why read?
No, it's fine. I'll just highlight some comments here. Jerry said, joy in a book can come from dense and difficult. When the story is well written, difficult isn't always pure cerebral challenge. Just wanted to highlight this. Unfun is challenge for challenge's sake. And then Nerd Level Rising said, David and Joanna, please help me beg Alan to come onto my channel for a stream sometime. I need more of this Japan talk.
Look, I'll talk to anybody. Just be warned, you could be branded a traitor at any time.
It's true. It's true. And I was complimented for the fact that I am and one more match away from official matchmaker status, because Evie was saying that I was a third wheel. So
look, I love talking to David. Anyway, you can go.
This is what I'm here for, though. I'm here to bring people together that are from that I think would pair well together. And I obviously did an amazing job. So much so, I'm not really needed here in this chat, which is totally cool.
No,
Alan, you should invite David to your Discord. So, David, you've been officially invited to the Knights of Allenxandria Discord. And craziest thing I've done, travel thing I've done, for me has to be. My mind always goes back to snorkeling to the Great Barrier Reef when I went to Australia a couple of years ago, because I'm so not a water person. Like I don't really like to swim that much. I don't feel water is my element. And my husband somehow talked me into doing this, like to going out into the middle of the ocean and snorkeling out to the Great Barrier Reef with this group of people. And when we're out there, it's just crazy because you look around you and all around you, no land. You're just in the middle of the ocean with no land anywhere in sight. And you know how deep it goes underneath you. And then it was so scary. And then trying to keep up with like the group that you're snorkeling with a tour guide who's very experienced. It was kind of terrifying, but also so awesome. Like I felt so vulnerable, but in the most awesome way ever. So I think that was the craziest thing I've ever done travel wise. And I loved it. I love surprising myself in life with because I'm a creature of comfort. So it's just nice to stretch myself in that way. So that's how I'll answer that question.
I would also traveling to a few, like, what was it, 3 different countries you did in like 10 or 12 days? I mean, that's quite an undertaking as well.
So we went to Australia, a couple of different places in Australia. We went to Sydney, and then I can't remember where it was that we went in Australia for that. Somebody might know. Cairns. We went to Cairns. That's what it was. Cairns, Australia, and then we went to Singapore after that, which was so fun. I was
talking about your more recent trip.
Oh, my more recent trip. Yeah, my more recent trip. We went to Amsterdam, followed by London, followed by Paris, which was amazing. Yeah. And now we're talking about possibly going to Korea and to Taiwan next year. I don't think I've even told you that yet, David, but that might even happen next year, possibly. Who knows? We'll see.
Those are 2 fabulous countries. I really think you're going to enjoy Taiwan. It's almost it's small. It's about the size of Scotland. It's got a little bullet train that you can dip down and up in about 2 hours. But the people are fantastic. The culture is fabulous as well. I think people are kind of beginning to look at it as a slightly dodgy prospect, given that China constantly has its eyeballs on it. But some of the best trip times I've had in my life were in Taiwan. So
one of my best friends from high school is at the embassy, and he works for the State Department. He's at the embassy in Taiwan, and we were just like, all right, I guess we'll never see you again, because when God Emperor Xi takes over Taiwan, Pope's going to be the first one to go. Sorry, buddy. So he talks about how dangerous, like how that kind of atmosphere is like on Taiwan now.
You know, my wife and I probably shouldn't say this on the internet, but I'm going to say it anyway. My wife and I would live in China in a heartbeat if it wasn't for the fact that the government itself is so controlling. Because I'd say a lot of the same things about China. Wonderful, wonderful cities, wonderful culture. Unfortunately, you kind of have to pick and choose also based on who's controlling the place. I saw someone also say that there's no love for Korea. I flipping love Korea. South Korea, also wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to have a great time if you do that trip. Come to
I hope it
Japan.
works out. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I would love to go back to Japan someday too. I loved
I
Japan
want to go back to
so much.
Japan so freaking bad.
I
Like, at
know.
least want to take a
Same.
trip, but everything's so.
Booktube trip. Booktube trip.
Yes.
I
That would
need.
be so much
I
fun.
never went to Tokyo. Our last week was travel week,
You've
and
never been to Tokyo? I didn't know
no,
that.
the
Oh,
three younger kids. No, sorry, the other older kid and the two younger ones went to Tokyo, but Big Mac went with me because I wanted to tour the countryside. I wanted to see Sekigahara, which is in the middle of freaking nowhere. It's a field. That's what it is. The battle that ended the Warring States period is just an empty field now. But we had to take all these like little trains and buses into the countryside, and that's what we did. So we toured around middle Japan. And then we met up in Lake Biwako after that. But I've still never been to Tokyo.
oh wow. We should all go to Tokyo. And I know that traveling can be hard, but there are and it can be. I mean, it can be very expensive, but I think there are certain strategies that one can employ to make it worthwhile. And I know David probably has a whole bunch of ideas about that too. But it is possible, right, David? Because you're so well traveled, David.
Yeah, I think I did a lot of my traveling sort of before. Well, not before. I mean, COVID was kind of the divider, wasn't it? It kind of depends. I think the main thing these days is the flights. I think when people talk about the travel expenses, they're talking about the flights, because based on your destination, you can make it work. But are you flying to Norway or are you flying to Vietnam? Those are two very different things. And often I think people will go to the closer destination. This is now why travel, isn't it? You go to the trip is shorter, but you're going to end up costing a bomb, especially in Scotland. You're right in the periphery of Europe. Here in Kuwait, it's Saudi Arabia is close. But if you can find the flight that will take you further, and teaching is difficult because you're kind of locked into what those summer vacations are and those winter vacations are. But if you can go further, you can make it work. But everyone's circumstances are different. You know what I mean? I think it's sometimes easy to say travel, but it is just something that we're fortunate to do.
I know. Like my husband looks like a year in advance at least for flights, and he does a lot of like watching certain things open and change, and it can be really challenging. So I kind of get that.
It's like $2,000 just from here to Japan, or from here to Italy. It's like $2,000 just for the flight.
Madness.
We pay a lot through credit card points. That's how we usually book our flights. So we mostly just buy everything through credit cards, and then. I mean, there's probably more to it because my husband is like the mastermind behind all this stuff. But yeah, we do things very strategically. I don't even understand how we're able to do it, but it can work. It can work out. I did want to bring up though, just going back to books again. We have really digressed into travel, haven't we?
Sorry.
This has been why travel. Goodness. But I did want to go back to books a bit and I am going to go back a little bit to Malazan because David, something that. I mean, I felt like I already cemented a friendship with you before we had our book difficulty discussion. I can't remember if I mentioned this already or not, but David and I basically became friends in Philip Chase's comment section a few months ago. And then it just hit it off right away and just like felt like kindred spirits when it came to like the books that we love and the way we like to talk about books. But in our book difficulty discussion, something we brought up or talked about was Malazan. And we talked about how Alan hates Toll the Hounds, and then I had to correct myself and say Alan doesn't hate Toll the Hounds. He just happens to have problems with it, and it's not his favorite Malazan book, but he still has a lot of positive things to say. So I did correct myself on that. But I also admitted that Toll the Hounds is not my favorite either. And David was so kind and open, and I think this also won me over to you because you wanted to go out of your way to ask me why I felt that way. And I've been gushing about you ever since. I've been gushing about you to my husband. I was gushing about you to my mom. Like this person, he not only wanted to know why I felt differently than him, but he actually like listened and validated my feelings, even though Toll the Hounds is his favorite book. And so I was talking about that, about just what a great friend, what a nice person that he would actually go out of his way to try to understand my different feelings about a book than him. But I didn't do it back. I didn't ask you, like, why do you love Toll the Hounds? And so here I am talking about how great you are for doing that for me. I never did that for you. So I want to do it now. So why is Toll the Hounds your favorite Malazan book? And can you share that without spoilers?
Because I'm a pretentious hack. That's why. Um, No, well, listen, I think everything you said about, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you were kind of articulating that Toll the Hounds was first of all, thank you for your kind words. It's appreciated. But I think what you said about Toll the Hounds, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting you, you got slightly, what's the word, maybe slightly deflated by it because it felt very centered on kind of men, and it felt like a very masculine book. Yeah. And I think that's totally valid. And I don't really think I have any counter argument, nor would I want to have a counter argument towards it, to be honest. But I think what it is for me, it's a few things for Toll the Hounds. First one, I'll just go away from Toll the Hounds for a minute. I think often the books we enjoy the most, we enjoy them not because of what necessarily the reading experience, but because where we were when we were reading the book. And I was at a very, very transformative time in my life. I was wrapping up university, kind of working out what I wanted to do next, which was actually move to Japan. So I kind of find myself indebted to the back half of Malazan for sort of personal reasons, and it felt more like a friend to me at that time. If that doesn't sound kind of very sad. But it felt like a friend that I was kind of walking along with while I was making all these important life decisions. I'd met my wife pretty much the same time as well. So there was a whole kind of confluence of circumstances. What's the line? What's the line in Malazan? Convergence of circumstances. But I also do think that Malazan is also, or Toll the Hounds rather, is where Erikson steps up his game. And begins to head more, and Alan's eyebrows are doing numbers there. But I think he leans into this more poetic, philosophical style, which will swivel readers one way or the other. I think some people will say that it is, again, a wee bit pretentious, and people kind of slide off it because of that. And it is very verbose, that book. I mean, the narrator of Toll the Hounds, if you know, is a very verbose person. But I really did not identify deeply, but resonate deeply, I guess, with the voice in that book. And I thought it was handling its themes, and not that all the other books don't do this, but in an especially masterful way. Although I don't necessarily enjoy every plot line, I think I don't want to go into spoilers, but there's one gang in that book that go on a merry adventure, and it can be pretty dreary reading.
What's the point, David? What's the purpose of that storyline? Tell me. How are we enriched?
Thematic purpose. I told you I was pretending. Anyway, I think the ending. I think the ending of Malazan doesn't happen in book 10. I think book 8 is the ending of Malazan, Book of the Fallen, and book 9 and 10 are sort of a tying up of other elements and ends. I think a lot of that series ends at the end of book 8, and I think those last 300, 400 pages are absolutely masterful. We talked at the beginning about these books that sort of,
I agree with that.
Happiness. They give you happiness and joy, and you reading this going, I'm loving this. And I remember, and I'll just say 3 words, and so I don't want to spoil it, but there's the 3 words turn it around in Toll the Hounds, and that's all I'll say. I literally shut the book, went to find my brother, who at this point had not read a single word of Malazan. I did convert him later, and I explained to him the entire plot of Gardens of the Moon through to Toll the Hounds, and told him why those 3 words are so significant and impactful. Because I was just buzzing. I was frothing with this energy that this book was giving me, because I think the climax of Toll the Hounds is deserves the enthusiasm that I'm putting out right now. So it's a whole mess of stuff, but I find that book one that I'm always excited to reread.
I love that answer. Yeah, I love that answer, and how it was tied into like all the convergence of all the things going on in your life and how meaningful it was for you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I feel like it's just so funny because I'm like, wow, what a nice person, what a great friend that he would actually listen to what I say. Because I've heard people have listened to my takes before, and they're just like, yeah, I love it though, but you didn't dismiss it. You were like, I want to know why, and just you really listened. So I felt like I don't make any sense that I didn't ask back at the time, but I'm really grateful to hear that story now. And I love that you.
Sorry, I think there's a defensiveness sometimes with. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I apologize.
No,
But I do understand why communities can get defensive. Even what I just said about the Dresden Files about half an hour ago. I'm sure some people will hear me say that I don't think it's very literary, and there will be it feels like hurt, doesn't it, when someone goes after the thing that you find beloved. I do think it's. Not to pat myself on the back. It sounds like I'm patting myself on the back, which I don't mean to do. But I think there is an importance of reflection there, and trying to. I think hearing criticisms just helps you understand the book more at the end of the day.
Yeah. I love that you're so open to that. And secondly, that was I mean, I don't know. Alan was nodding, so I would love to hear, Alan, your thoughts on this too. But I'll be honest, as much as I've been around Malazan circles the last few years, I haven't heard anybody say that before about how Toll the Hounds feels like the end of Malazan Book of the Fallen, and that that the last two books are more like wrapping things up. I never thought about that before, but I love your takes. Your takes on Malazan are just like they're very different than other takes I've heard, and so that's a really interesting insight, and I could see how you could support that too, without going into spoilers here, of course.
Mhm.
But go ahead, Alan. What was your thought? Because you nodded about that too.
Okay, well, thank you for giving me a chance to rebut this whole conversation that we're having. First of all, I need to address everyone. Did everyone listen to the words that Joanna just said about how, oh, David's just such a good friend. He listens to other opinions. He doesn't shoot them down. Y'all hear the subtext of unlike Alan, who is a petty tyrant who tolerates no dissension and will not stand while these terrible opinions are being spouted. So I just want to make sure everyone caught the subtext there. Because I heard it, and that's fine. Listen, Toll the Hounds is my least favorite Malazan book by a long shot. It is still a Malazan book, so it's still excellent. And I am in 100% agreement with David that those last 400 pages are really, really good. Like the convergence in Toll the Hounds, I think, is truly exceptional. I will agree with you. The problem is there are 900 other pages that are not that way at all. There are too many plot lines in Toll the Hounds, and Philip says it's a
Meditation on grief.
Meditation on grief. Cool. There are other books that do that in 1/3 of the pages, and it is too late to be introducing as many people as they do. The Kalik thing is belabored beyond belief. We have characters who are supposed to be age-old, older even than the gods, that are getting schooled by teenage drow elves, right? And we also have the storyline that David's talking about, which is like, why are we spending so much time here with these things? And also, and this will segue nicely, Joanna, into something else you wanted to talk about. I think that Toll the Hounds is overhyped more than any other Malazan book. And this is because on BookTube, in our little corner of the community, it just gets a lot of positive spin. When someone says to me, Alan, it's the cipher of the series, I'm like, you are parroting Steven Erikson at me. Stop it. Like, I too can listen to a BookTube video and repeat what I heard. That's fine. Like,
I want to interrupt really quickly. This is what I loved about David's take, because that insight he gave about it was not parroting what Steven Erikson said.
I completely
agree. And it was not parroting what Philip said either. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
it was a cipher for the series, though, Alan.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay. You know what it unlocked? It unlocked my boredom. That's what it unlocked. That's what the cipher unlocked. It is. There is nothing wrong with liking Toll the Hounds. I think that more people could be more honest and say that some of the buzz surrounding it, they are affected by some of it, because we are human beings and we are infected by our environments and what we were like when we were reading it. There's also Toll the Hounds is when I noticed a bunch of things where I have a bunch of questions where it's like, what? Why does Harlow make this decision that he makes in this? It makes no sense. What Harlow does in this book, I cannot understand it, and no one will explain it to me. People are just like, well, it's because no, that doesn't make any sense. Your explanation doesn't make any sense. And Harlow was one of my favorites from the previous books. For me, it feels like it overstays its welcome, and I understand that a lot of people like the philosophical aspects of this, and that's fine. But you can't divide Malazan fans into theme likers and not theme likers, because I love a lot of themes. I love the thematic nature of loyalty and duty. Coltane, who is a subjugated person fighting for his subjugators in Deadhouse Gates, it is one of the reasons that Coltane is just one of my all-time faves in that. I think the series peaks for me in Bone Hunters, because the military aspect is my favorite of, and if you look at Toll the Hounds, that is actually what is missing the most. It is the least military of the books, is Toll the Hounds. And so I think the military aspect of it is the reason that that it's part of the reason I love Malazan so much is his exploration of the boots on the ground and themes of loyalty and duty and that kind of stuff. And I just think I don't know. I just told the Hounds. It's very different from all that came before, including Midnight Tides. And I just can't get behind. And so part of my objection is everyone else's. I feel like an equalizer. That is my purpose in life, is to yuck someone's yum. So when everyone is just like raising Toll the Hounds as the apex of Malazan, I feel like there needs to be a conflicting voice being like, hey, but what if it wasn't though? Come on, guys. Like what if it wasn't? Now, those last 300-400 pages, you can put those against any 300 or 400 pages in the series. At the convergence and stuff. And also some of the characters involved in the convergence aren't my favorite. So, it's also not my favorite of the convergences, but that's really why Toll the Hounds, there's just a lot of characters, and a lot of them I just don't like or care about. And then the ones I do make decisions that I don't understand. And then there's Kalec everywhere. And that is...
Kalec. I love that Anita agrees with you, and she hasn't even read the series.
Anita always agrees with me. She's a loyalist. She's a good soldier.
Can I ask a follow-up? To be honest, I don't disagree with a lot of what you said, because I think it is kind of just down to that sort of preference of, are you vibing with what's going on? Have you read Carcanis?
No.
Because I think you would despise Carcanis based on everything you've
That's what everyone's told me. They've told me that I probably wouldn't enjoy Carcanis. I will read it one day, because I will read all Malazan stuff. Because the thing is, despite my relative dislike of Toll the Hounds, it's still Malazan. And the story that Malazan is telling, just like Black Company, is greater than any one book. And so I am, I like Dust of Dreams more than most people do. And that is because there's a whole lot of soldiering going on in Dust of Dreams, even though a bunch of people like Dust of Dreams is near the bottom on many, many people's ranking. I like Dust of Dreams. I think the last 150 pages of Dust of Dreams are just like, what? So,
yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because I thought, I'm sorry to interrupt, David. I was just going to say, I thought that you were not as high about the last few books in the series as the earlier ones.
Oh, I'm definitely not. No, that's true. But I still like Dust of Dreams more than most people do.
Okay.
But I like Memory of Ice less than many people do, even though it has tons of military engagements. The Siege of Kapistan is
so good. Yes.
But
and the Bone Hunters Chapter 7, I've been getting after Brian from BellTube because he's reading the series right now. I'm like, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on Chapter 7. But the reason, one other thing I want to bring up, and David, I'm so sorry, I'm going to ask you to hold your thought.
No.
Because
go
ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that my previous thing I was going to say is just that if Toll the Hounds is a meditation on grief, I think Dust of Dreams is a meditation on purpose. And I agree with you, Ellen. I think it's a brilliant book that is severely underrated. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Dust of Dreams is a controversial book because of a certain chapter. And I can understand also why some people are not as high about it, but I love that book. And I also want to say, though, so I was on David's channel recently for a Malazan Hot Takes video collaboration, which was so much fun. And the first take I had is actually non-spoiler. And I wanted to see if you agreed with this, Alan. And I had a reason that relates to what you're talking about. So my hot take is that, and I thought Philip was going to vehemently disagree with me, but my hot take was that you don't have to read all the books in the Malazan universe to call yourself a Malazan Book of the Fallen fan. Like, you can just read the 10-book series and not read Carcanis or Knight of Knives or any of the other books. You could still call yourself a fan, but, and this is my recommendation, not gatekeeping, you should, sort of take. But my recommendation is that maybe finish the 10-book series before saying Malazan is the best series of all time, or that, that it's your favorite of all time, or the best of all time, or the most underhyped, or whatever. Maybe finish the 10-book series. And the reason that I said that is because, well, one, I mean, I might have done that. I might have said, this is my favorite series before I finished it. But I was lucky. I was lucky in that I really did love all 10 books, just in different ways. But the other thing about it too is that something that David and I have talked about a lot is how maybe the last 3 books in the series are different for people. And I'll never forget the spoiler-free discussion I had here on my channel about the series. And you and Brittany both, even though you both enjoyed different things in Malazan, you both didn't feel as high about the last few books as you did with the rest of the series. Not to say that Malazan, I mean, clearly Malazan, you're a huge fan. But do you agree with that? That maybe don't say that something is your favorite series of all time if you haven't finished it. But it's a hot take. But
You
what
talking
do
to
you
me?
think? Yeah.
I mean, I don't like, and this is the great existential crisis I live. I don't love hyperbole, and I realize saying that in everything I say is hyperbole. I, I don't know how to
Didn't
justify
Steven
that.
Erikson say he was going to make a character named after you named hyperbole?
I wish he would. But so I don't like people clamoring to make blanket statements like that before they finished it. I mean, they can. People can do what they want.
They
Like,
can
if you
do
wanna
whatever
that,
they want. That's
totally
just a
fine.
recommendation.
Yeah, it's just like you're gonna sound foolish when you finish it, and well, then you're kind of forced to live up to what you said. So if you don't like books 7, 8, 9, and 10, I mean, you already said it was your favorite. I mean, unless you're one of these people that doesn't care about amending your statements. I have no problem doing that at all. For example, Reaper's Gale, I enjoy less every time I read it. Like, Reaper's Gale is slowly creeping down. I enjoy it less every time I read it. I think if I need to read Toll the Hounds again, and I will one day. I'm in no hurry. And to see if, this second time through, because Toll the Hounds was the first. Toll the Hounds, Dust of Dreams, and Crippled God are the only 3 I've read only once, because I had made it to Toll the Hounds in a previous reread. So every other book I've read at least twice. So I enjoyed Reaper's Gale. I think the resolution of the plot line in Reaper's Gale is one of the most disappointing things in Malazan for me personally. Sometimes subverting the trope is like, I get it. I see that we subverted the trope. It would have been way cooler if you just didn't subvert the trope and gave us what the standard thing that, people were expecting. I would have loved that way more. So, it's possible I like Toll Hounds more, but yeah, I think after Bone Hunters, I think it gets larger, if that can be said. Like, if that can be said, I think it's much more expansive after Bone Hunters. I think it's very clear what our purpose is up to Bone Hunters. And then once Reaper's Gale and Toll the Hound, especially the last 3, it's just, I mean, you really kind of got to be on board. So I understand if people don't like those last 3 books. Now, there's so much crazy military action in Crippled God. Like, you just hate fun if you don't like the back half of Crippled God. Like, that's insane. What an insane
it is
book.
insane.
But yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Cool. Just wanted to clear that up. And David, you had thoughts. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that actually I totally agree on Reaper's Gale and the climax of Reaper's Gale there. I think it's a very difficult challenge an author can set for themselves when they tell you right at the beginning of the story where the climax is going to be. And I think actually Wind and Truth is another example that suffers from this. I saw someone mention Wind and Truth in the chat. When you say from page 1, the climax is going to happen at this point, you've got to be very careful, because what happens then is the 800 pages in the middle just become filler. And this is actually, no, I won't say that, because it's bordering on the spoilerific. But I think there's a certain Hobbes series that I think does that. Where you know what the end goal is, and then you're just kind of plodding until you get there. And I think you could argue that Reaper's Gale kind of falls under that. And I wouldn't really disagree what you said about books 8, 9, and 10. I mean, books 9 and 10, as I just said, I love book 9 in particular. The first time I read book 9 and book 10, I'll be honest, I've told you this, Joanna, I didn't understand it. I kind of went, I don't want to say specific plot points, but I kind of maybe understood about 30% of those last 2 books when I read them the first time. And they were utterly, utterly rewarding on the reread. But that first time through, new characters, different direction. I think that Erikson gets a little bit more subtextual in those last 3 books as well. There's a lot of inference you have to make, and 20-year-old David did not make those inferences very, very well. So I'd kind of agree. Regarding the whole fan discussion, I think it's a tricky one. It's kind of semantics, isn't it? But I mean, Game of Thrones, the TV show, taught us all to be very hesitant and careful, didn't it? With what we kind of hitch our wagon to too soon.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, this is something else, kind of not related. I mean, I can make it related to Malazan. I'm sorry I've been focusing on Malazan a lot. I hope that's not boring people in the chat. I
Not
think
for
most of
me.
you all are still with me. I just saw Thomas's, chat here, "Why read Malazan?" And I say that, and I'm like, "I don't think Thomas would like Malazan," but but yeah, but what I was gonna say is that, I wanted to ask David. I don't think we've ever talked about star ratings before, and I thought I would bring this up just very briefly. Like if you, and I also wanted to bring up, Alan, you know how you said that people who don't use star ratings are not snobby, but you said that we're pretentious. And unfortunately, you can't call Philip pretentious anymore because he's been giving some star ratings out. I don't know if you
Okay.
knew this,
So
but he
all people who don't give star ratings are pretentious, but like pretension isn't just people not giving star ratings. Also, here
well, well
you
said.
know what? I'll draw a line in the sand. People who don't give star ratings are cowards. They're
I
cowards.
was, oh no, listen, I was going to call myself a coward.
That's what I'm saying. They're
Because
cowards.
this is a challenge I have when grading as a teacher as well, especially with essays where it's kind of you can maybe quibble
Yeah.
with it. I just find myself giving perpetual 4 stars.
Man.
And it's not because I'm so clever, although I joked about being clever earlier. It's not because I'm clever and can find the flaws in everything. It's because I can't commit. It seems like I'll commit to my wife, I'll commit to my children, and I commit to very little else. Because whenever I finish a book, I go towards the 4-star to kind of hedge my bets and make sure that I don't upset anyone too much. So genuinely, I think there is an element there. And I'm not going to fight you too much about that because yeah, I struggle with it, and sometimes I wonder if that's just because I want to see where the lay of the land is, and then I think that's ultimately cowardly. So I'll just say my thoughts and move on.
We have as a teacher, you understand. I don't actually in Kuwait and in Japan, do they have grade inflation the way they do here? Where like a C used to be an average grade, right? C for all the kids that I teach, which are all these, it's a top quartile, college bound kid. A C for them is a death sentence, so they think.
C for them is a phone call saying what I've done wrong. Sometimes
it's an email from their parents being like, well, why does my kid, so your kid doesn't come to school and doesn't turn anything in, so how about that? Also, your kid's not very bright, which you can't say, but I mean, sometimes kids like sorry. But so I think there is rating inflation. I think there is. I think 3-star is I mean, just like no one here, unless you really are a stick to your guns kind of person, 3-star for most people means it's not good. Like, it's not good. Most people see 3 stars like, well, that wasn't good. Like, I rarely give something 1 star. And then 2 stars, like Glorious Exploits and The Dispossessed, these are books I did not enjoy. I did not enjoy the experience of reading it. Very rarely do I give a 1 star. Return of the Crimson Guard. That's a 1 star because that's called failed potential. What are you doing to me? What are you doing to me, Esselmont, in that book? But I mean, like, star ratings, I think, on their own are useless. I think star ratings in the context of a particular reviewer can be useful. So if someone follows my channel and I gave it 5 stars, people know what I like in books. People know exactly what I enjoy in books. People know the things that make me really excited about a book. In addition, there's usually some text that follows or a video that says, hey, here's all the reasons that I love it. And you see me be super excited or whatever. 4-star books are like, I like this. It's not an all-time favorite, but I like this. And then 3 stars is like, you know what? This book is fine, but I didn't really enjoy it all that much, but I mean, it's fine. And then, so I get it. But like, so I think like among specific people, star ratings can be useful. They're shorthand for, does that make sense? But I do understand like general star ratings are, because what does it mean to different people? So I understand it. But there's people like Joanna who like make it like their identity and like form like political parties around the fact that she refuses to give star ratings and tries to elevate herself among the rest of us. Care to speak on that, Joanna?
You're the one who gave me that identity. Alan named me in his Discord, Joanna, who hates star ratings. I didn't give myself that name. He named me that. That's my name in his Discord.
Where's the
the video that we Joanna and I both took part in from Preacher Reads, and he wanted a collaboration of all the people's recommendations of books that I've got less than a certain score on on Goodreads. So if you got beyond this, if you could only recommend a book that got below a certain threshold, do you want to know what that threshold was?
What?
3.85. Yeah, so in the mind of Preacher, and I don't disagree with him because this is how Goodreads is, less than 3.85 equals a bad book. And I think that's also, I think what you said about, there's like a translation issue there, isn't it? It kind of feels like maybe like different religious denominations, like use the same words, but in slightly different contexts. It feels very similar to me. So I do kind of have an accord with that, yeah.
Well,
I got a question for you. Because my first video of yours that I ever watched was you discussing Pratchett. And so my follow-up for you would be, what star rating would Pyramids get?
Oh my gosh. So this is a good question, because I do the same thing with KJ Parker, whom I've read all of his stuff, and some of the books I just don't like. So I rate it in the context of Parker. This is what I give it, even though the fact that it is Parker means that I elevate it above other stuff. Same thing with Pratchett. Pyramids as a Pratchett book is garbage, but it's still a Pratchett book. So it still elevates. So in the Pratchett, the Discworldosphere, it is a 1-star book because it's garbage. I could be convinced to make it 2 because the first half of Pyramids is entertaining. But the second he goes to Jelly Baby, it's not good. I hate it so much. It is, Pratchett already has the end of every Discworld novel, except the Watch books are the best about this, which may be why one of the reasons I like them even more, other than Sam Vimes. The end of the magic-oriented Pratchett books are really abstract. And when I was in high school reading all these for the first time, I struggled to like, what is happening at the end of these books? And Pyramid was the worst by far, where I had no idea what was going on. And I haven't reread it. So really I should reread it and see. And I plan to eventually, but from the one time I read it, I hated it.
But see, the problem with that is if you start with Pyramids, you don't have the other, like, okay, well, this is a 1-star for Terry Pratchett. Like, you don't have that kind of context. So giving it a star rating, I feel like that makes it all confusing to me. Like, that's why I overthink. I'm an overthinker, and I think this is why star ratings don't work for me. But if I were to star rate things, sorry, I'm like running over here. If I were to star rate things, I've often said I would do it based on enjoyment. I wouldn't do it on like how good the book is objectively or da 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 da. I would just do it like feeling like I loved this. I had the best time. I sort of had an okay time, but the problem is my feelings on books are never that simple. So yeah, I just can't do it.
Well, that's why Glorious Exploits, while I acknowledge what Glorious Exploit, and I acknowledge what The Dispossessed is trying to do. I acknowledge the themes and the point of both of them. I did not enjoy reading them, and that has to be part of it. And I also am not someone who will stand by my star ratings. I let them sit, and if I don't think about that book anymore, I generally will like move it from 5 to 4. And then there are books like The Folding Knife by Parker. When I first read it, before I'd read any Parker, I gave it 4 stars, and then I could not stop thinking about it. And so I elevated it to 5 because I still think about that book. Same thing with Long Press Quartet. Shadow and Summer, Betrayal in Winter, those 2, I didn't give 5 stars. But then I read books 3 and 4, and I'm like, oh, no, absolutely not. And I went back and raised the other 2 retroactively just because of how relevant they are to the larger story.
I would be doing that all day long. I'd be going back and re-rating retrospectively all day long because because my feelings change so much over time, and that recency bias is so strong for some reads. And
but
I just can't do it.
There's another issue here too, right? Which is that as kind of booktubers and people who are kind of involved in the space, we automatically gravitate towards the stuff that is already successful. Like, I don't think we really see the 1-star books, man, the 2-star books, because those are the ones that don't really crop up in our radar. Like what we talked about that we've been, taking shots at: Ursula Le Guin, Toll the Hounds, Empire of Silence, Wind and Truth. Like, none of these are 1-star books because the 1-star books mainly, I would say, quietly get shuffled under the radar.
That's a good point.
Apart from Empire of Silence.
Shadow and Summer, what you were talking about, Shadow and Summer, first book of Long Press Quartet, has a 3.63 on Goodreads. And this is with 13,000 ratings. It has a 3.63. That is Goodreads, like Goodreads leprosy. That's how
Yeah.
that's how terrible that is on Goodreads. These people are wrong. Like they're not correct. And I understand. But again, I would challenge anybody who has read all 4 books to anyway. Goodreads
That's just
is
like, yeah.
Goodreads is the
Where
worst.
should I start with KJ Parker? I've seen that KJ Parker wrote Walled City, right? 16 Ways.
Yes, everyone starts with that one, and I haven't
That's the
even
only
read
one I
that.
know.
I haven't even. That's because no one reads KJ Parker, so I'm the one reading the 1-star books. The Folding Knife. If you can get a hold of it, you can't really outside of America. The novella Purple and Black is an epistolary novella that does basically everything that KJ Parker does really well. Anitha read it this year, and yeah, there you go. Loved it. And then The Folding Knife, I think, is the best exemplar. I just read a review of The Folding Knife that said, I did not enjoy this because I did not like economics. Like, I don't like the economics. It's heavy on banking and economics, but I like what Parker does with his characters. Like, I like his character work, but like, it was just hard for me to read because I don't give a crap about the economics of a country. But The Folding Knife, or Purple and Black, if you can get a hold of it, showcases everything that he's really good at. And so once anybody has read that book, I can say, what did you like about it? And if you're like, I loved it, then like, boom, pick any of these. But if you're like, okay, I didn't like the economics, but I liked this, then boom, I'll give you one that doesn't. I can show you one that doesn't have the economic stuff in it, but still has this other thing that you really like. So Folding Knife is a good showcase. And it's also, there's more of a obvious plot in that one than in some of them. Like The Hammer is obnoxiously slow, but also really good. Anyway, I really like it, but I would start with Folding Knife or Purple and Black, like Anitha says.
He
You
sounds
want
like
to buddy
quite
read KJ Parker, David?
because he sounds like quite a versatile author. Before we went on, I was talking about Dan Simmons. I love Dan Simmons, and one of the reasons I love Dan Simmons is even when he writes. And listen, Dan Simmons has written some 1-star books, but he's endlessly versatile. Like, none of his books are the same. He'll go from like melodious, abstract sci-fi all the way down to like a pulpy noir thriller. The man just kind of writes to whatever he wants, and it sounds like maybe KJ Parker is quite similar there.
Well, KJ Parker, there are a lot of similarities between it. Like, there's a certain type of character that Parker, especially in his shorter works. My favorites of his are his third-person standalones, and then the Engineer trilogy has some of, like, we read that 2 years ago almost, and there are some of just the most unique characters in fantasy that we got from when we read those books, just because, like, he just will go places with characters that just aren't gone very far. So The Hammer is extraordinarily slow. It is also a study on grief. It is a meditation on grief and like just your place in a family. And it's extremely slow. I would never recommend The Hammer as someone's first book.
But is the Hammer a cipher for KJ Parker's work as a whole?
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, Purple and Black is. No, it is not. Yes, I agree. Sorry, Joanne, I just janked your
You can
comment.
do it. That's fine. Go ahead.
The Engineer trilogy is Shakespearean. Now, I've read 2 trilogies by Parker. He has not landed the plane good either time. I did not. The third book of Engineer trilogy is good. I just did not. It's one of these things where I didn't like where the plot ended up. Like, I didn't like the choices that he made in that book. But the first 2 are also just tremendous. But I would, anyway, talking about literally no one tuned in for this. The Folding Knife is a good sample.
I saw you saying a video, Alan, something along the lines of, if you were trying to get an arc, I think, of a KJ Parker book, and you said, if not me, then who?
That's seriously like, come on, Tor. There aren't legions of KJ Parker fans. It's not a Sanderson novel. Get out of here. Like, who are you giving the arcs to, Tor? You should be glad that someone is coming hat in hand asking for an arc so they can review it. And they did eventually give me one, and it was good as far as the novellas go. I don't like his shorter work as much as his third-person standalones. I think he is a superior third-person novelist over his first-person stories, my opinion.
Interesting. Yeah. Cool. Well, I know we've gone on for over 90 minutes. So I think we should probably wrap this up because I know, David, you probably have, it's probably getting late in Kuwait, is what I imagine at this point. So yeah, I want to thank everybody so much for joining in the chat today. This was a lot of fun. And thank you so much, David and Alan, for joining me for this episode of Why Read. I knew this would be a really fun and interesting pairing. I had no idea that you two would hit it off to the level that you did. So thank you both.
Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. And thank you again for your kind words that you said half an hour ago, something like that. Appreciate
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I can't say the same, Joanna, because you didn't say nice things about me. No,
I've said so many nice things about you in the past.
I was just dredging up some conflict there. I do apologize.
Well, I love Alan. Alan is the reason I started my channel. I feel like I've said this story like so many times already.
Well, you know what? It's nice to hear, Joanna. Like,
I do. Oh, well, I do. I love you, Alan. I was actually just telling David about how when I first found your channel, like way before I started Joanna Reads, I went back and I just backlog watched every video, and I rarely ever do that when I find a channel. Just go back and watch every single video. And yeah, no, I still love your channel. I still love hanging out with you, and that's why I wanted to invite you.
No,
And I knew this, and also I didn't get a chance to tell her, but Christina did a fantastic review on your channel of the vanished birds, and I did comment on that video. I was blown away. And it was really funny too, because she said, I'm going to keep this away from spoilers, or she was going to try to be spoiler free. She spoiled the whole entire book up until like the last page, but but it was a brilliant review. It was an absolutely spectacular.
She did not delineate between when she was done talking about non-spoilers and then when she was going to talk about the spoilers. Like, she did not delineate that well, but
but I've read the book, so I didn't mind, and I loved her thoughts on it too. So just wanted to shout that out as well. So yay. Well, thank you all again for joining us for Why Read, and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.